Now we're going to go into Darksiders Genesis. This is a game that came out last year on PC and Google Stadia, and just came out recently on consoles, PS4 and Xbox One. I know Derek played a bit of it when it came out on PC, and Lee's now picked it up on console. So, how is it, guys?
It on the surface, because they've obviously the first two from the last generation are kind of like third person
Yes.
action adventure games, much like Zelda. This
Yep.
has changed to a top down, seemingly Diablo type
Mm-hmm.
game, but it's really not. It's literally the same game, just with a stuck above perspective. It's just a beat 'em up. So although it has the appearance of being a looty kind of Diablo type thing, it's not. So
Mm-hmm.
they've shifted the perspective and made it into a kind of an isometric
Kind of like a
type game.
isometric Metroidvania-ish kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still has the elements of that. It still has the combat. It's war from the first one
Mm-hmm.
and strike. Are the two characters we've never been before. One is a melee character. The other is a ranged weapons character.
Okay.
But they act pretty much like the characters did in the games. They traverse, they climb, they kind of scale, they platform, they can kind of float, grow wings and float
Yeah.
across gaps and stuff
As
like that.
as Derek figured out, the platforming is really intuitive and easy to. I remember you having trouble on one of your streams, trying to make some sort of jump.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple spots where it was like trying to jump and then like grapple and then jump again and then trying to like hit that distance because it was like it was jumping to the wall.
Yeah, I remember it was
Like you had to like
specifically.
perfectly time your jump, at least using
Yeah.
the keyboard, because that's when I was trying to play with mouse and keyboard.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was probably
And
most of your problem.
and like the only thing that really got me with it, like, because it was fun to play, the platforming was nice. Was the way they kind of like semi locked the camera angle.
Yeah.
Like where you could only move it like so far one direction and then so far the other direction. It just felt really weird and like restrictive at some points.
They're not very smart with the foreground object when
Yeah.
you're doing stuff, including platform. They'll have this big monolithic kind of pillar in front of where you're supposed to be jumping, and sometimes you can't see where you're going because it kind of wipes you out, and you can see yourself behind it, but you obviously can't see anything else. It doesn't, in a game that would normally opaque the foreground.
Yeah.
They don't do that here, so you just got to guess at what happened. The jumping stuff's all right until it isn't.
Yeah, well, I mean, the isometric camera for jumping is always going to be a little bit tricky because you don't really have the depth perception that you have with either 2D or 3D, of course. It's the same problem with jumping and platforming in first person because you don't actually see what you're jumping to. So yeah,
this is okay when you're doing stuff like you have the grapple assist, because it's funneling you down a jump that you're gonna make unless you screw up the time.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's kind of like you say, judging just hopping from one pillar to another, good luck. It's 50. You're gonna make it a lot of the time.
How's like the story part of it? Because I know for a lot of people, me especially, I like the story and setting of Darksiders, and I'm waiting for that one where they all come together and finally defeat the whatever we're fighting. I don't even remember anymore. How's
Good
that?
luck waiting for that.
What's that?
Good luck waiting for that fourth one.
Well,
sure
I don't know.
We got onto that later. It's well told. It's the voice acting when it happened is is strong. There's a good opening cinematic, which is kind of the full CG jobby, and you got the characters and the way they interact on point with the old ones. If you like War in the first one, it's very much like that. When you get into the game, it does the static kind of one-shot type things where it flips backwards and forwards and people pop in and out like they're on a stick when they're talking and when they're not talking, and it's kind of that flat kind of like comic book panel type thing, but overlaid. The way I tell it, I don't like very much. It feels a little bit cheap.
Okay.
A little bit like, remember Zombieland? I think I might have mentioned the game Zombieland.
Zombieland? Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Was that
But
the one with Woody Harrelson?
Yeah, that's that game I really liked.
Yeah,
the game where the shooting was absolutely 100%.
That was like your number one game of last year, wasn't it?
It was number one on a list. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on. Yeah, correct. Right. You're number one on a list, right?
On a list.
Yeah.
But it does do that thing kind of where
list.
it does that thing where they kind of talk and they kind of the characters will pop onto screen. So it's kind of, it feels like a budget way of telling the story. I don't like that very much, but when you get the story and you get the kind of it play out, it's still cool. There's something I don't like about it though. When you hear voiceover, they've got this because it's like in dungeons and caves and stuff like that. They do this really dodgy reverb, which makes it almost impossible to hear everybody. It's not. It feels like a really fake reverb. So it's just literally like a stutter as opposed to an echo, and you can't hear a lot of the dialogue. It's really quite bad.
Wow.
So, yeah. This is the thing. I feel like it's fine to change the game. This feels like it's been changed through necessity rather than kind of a want to do. We'll do a Diablo style game, guys. It feels like circumstances have led it to be a top-down, stripped-down version of the older, more expansive third-person game. It feels like a probably a compromised game, maybe.
All right.
It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean,
feel...
it always felt. I mean, it's budget priced as well. It's not full $60, and I think it's is it 30?
I think it's 39. I think it was 40 for it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not far off of
All right, so 40.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it does feel like kind of they don't have the resource to do much of, even within the scope of how they've had to do it. It still feels a bit truncated. It still feels a little bit like.
It doesn't feel like a good one of those types of games. It feels like even a budget version of a budget game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very strange feeling. It's kind of.
I mean, right from the reveal of it, I got those vibes of it. I was like, oh, this isn't like a main pillar of, this is like a side story, like it's a prequel, so
yeah.
And then like hopefully a one step in between Darksiders 4, which has all four of the horsemen there and doing whatever they're gonna do, riding horses, I guess.
Yeah, I just hope I hope they do pull it together, but I'm not sure they're getting the resources they need for the games, because even the previous one, Darksiders 3, seems a little kind of not quite of the production value it was hoping. Because we was talking on the game when we did our Games of the Year about the assets they had for Remnant, that they kind of we noticed that were in Darksiders and Remnant, and it's sort of slightly concerned that it's not the other way round. Remnant was a game, and they have one of their million retro franchises they bought. Because how many have they got going now? They've got about 30, haven't they? They've got so many kind of things they bought. We're going to resurrect this from Atari, and we're going to.
Are you talking about THQ?
Yeah.
So.
And I feel like this might be one of those.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they have a little bit. They put a little bit more value on Darksiders because it is, like they even a Darksiders Genesis had come out, they still had the game on show on the floor at PAX East. That was one of the. Yeah, they had like kiosks for it so people could play it. Yeah. I think from everything I've heard, Remnant has done pretty well for them. Yeah. It was pretty successful overall. So I'm hoping that like that gives them the extra, like, because this was Genesis must have been almost done by the time Remnant came out. Like they were working on those games simultaneously, clearly, because one came out earlier in the year and then the other one came out near the end. So like if they were on a budget, it would have been, through the bulk of the Genesis development. So now I'm hoping that whatever, they have from Remnant and Genesis, they can put toward, wrapping up the Darksiders legacy, as it were, and maybe coming out with a fourth game.
Yeah, I do like the series. It's a fun series. It's a fun throwback. It's got fun throwback art. It's got it wears its influences in its sleeve, but it wears them well.
Yeah, it doesn't try to hide it. It kind of it tackles it head on and then makes some interesting changes with it.
The sort of games we don't get anymore, like character action, don't really get those.
Yeah, that's like that B-level game, maybe a little bit higher than an A- game, B+ game.
With the kind of throwback 90s style to the game, where everything looks like Spawn.
Yeah,
we've got overly large weapons and like stupidly big boots and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's a series I'd like to see.
Lee, let me tell you about Final Fantasy VII. If you're into big boots and swords.
I understand he has a sizable weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that completely different. Should we move on?
Yeah, I think we're good. Darksiders Genesis is out now on everything, except for Switch.
It's fine.
I think it would be a good Switch game. Oh, it is on Switch?
I think it is actually on Switch, yeah.
Okay, I think it would be a good Switch game because it's the locked camera and you could easily play that in handheld mode. All right. At the very least, it's on PC, Xbox One, and PS4, possibly Switch, and Google Stadia, if you're one of the 2 people that subscribes to that service. Thank you for joining us on this very special episode of Voxel Viewpoint. If you'd like to hear or see more, please consider subscribing to us on your favorite podcast app, subscribing to us on YouTube, or visiting voxelvoice.com, where all of our great content comes together in one place. Also check out the Voxel Voice Facebook group, where you can join in on the discussion with a great, like-minded community.